Hi there. Welcome back to Forsaken Joe. Last night I stood in a crowded hotel ballroom with a tray of champagne glasses trembling in my hands. The music was loud, people were laughing, and the air was thick with perfume and fake compliments. And then I saw her, Nora, my ex-wife. The woman who vanished from my life 3 years ago like I never even mattered. She didn't notice me at first. She was the star of the night, everyone orbiting around her, smiling, raising glasses. She looked like she had it all. But then, as I stepped closer with the tray, she turned her head. Our eyes met, and I swear, it was like she'd seen a ghost. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was just filling in for a catering gig, because my life has gone so downhill that I'll take whatever job pays for rent. I didn't think twice about who the client was. I didn't think about her at all, because I've spent years training myself not to think about her. But there she was. And the moment she saw me, her perfect smile cracked. She froze. Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. The entire ballroom went quiet. She started crying, real ugly crying. Everyone stared, her boss, her coworkers, all of them just watching this perfect woman break down in the middle of her own company party. And me? I stood there like an idiot. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear anything else. I wanted to disappear, but I couldn't move, because deep down, all I could think was, why is she crying? Does she regret what she did? Does she finally understand what she left behind? Or is this just another performance? Hi again. Welcome back to Forsaken Joe. After Nora broke down in the middle of that ballroom, the entire atmosphere shifted. The music felt too loud. The conversations turned into awkward murmurs, and I could feel 100 pairs of eyes flicking between her and me. I didn't move. I just stood there, clutching that tray like a shield, every muscle in my body screaming to walk away. But something about the way she looked at me, like I was the last person she ever expected to see, kept me rooted to the spot. Her boss rushed over, whispering something in her ear, but Nora didn't answer. She was staring straight at me, tears streaking her makeup, her lips trembling. And then she said my name. Not loud, but enough for the people near us to hear it. I felt the blood drain from my face. 3 years of silence, and now she's crying and saying my name like I'm the villain in her story. I ducked into the back hallway, hoping to get out of sight, but the sound of her heels clicking against the marble floor followed me. She found me by the service doors, my hands still shaking. "Walter," she said, her voice raw. "You weren't supposed to be here." Like I was trespassing in some part of her new life that I had no right to see. I wanted to ask her why she was crying, why she was acting like the one who was hurt, when she was the one who walked out. But all that came out was, "You're doing fine. You don't need me around to ruin your big night." I thought she'd snap back with something sharp, but instead, she just broke down again. It was the kind of crying that makes people look away out of pity. And then she said something I didn't expect. "You don't know what really happened, do you?" The words hit me harder than I want to admit. For 3 years, I've lived with this narrative that she cheated, that she left me because I wasn't enough. But the way she said it, like there's a part of the story I never even touched. It hooked me. She wanted to talk. Right there, in the back hallway of a luxury hotel, while her coworkers whispered rumors about the crazy crying woman, she wanted to tell me everything. I didn't know if I wanted to hear it, but I also knew I wouldn't be able to sleep another night if I walked away now. Hi again, welcome back to Forsaken Joe. Standing in that hallway with Nora felt like stepping into a different reality. I swear the sound of the party behind us faded into this muffled hum, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Her hands were trembling, and for the first time in years, she looked small, vulnerable. This was not the untouchable, confident woman I remembered. She leaned against the wall like she was trying to stop herself from collapsing and whispered, "You think I left because I didn't love you anymore? Walter, I left because I thought I was saving you." Those words didn't make sense. Saving me? From what? The anger that I'd swallowed for years came rushing back. "You don't just disappear from a marriage and call it saving someone," I said. "You left me with no explanation, nothing. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" My voice cracked, and I hated how desperate I sounded, but I couldn't stop. I had spent 3 years imagining every ugly scenario. Her with someone else, her laughing at me behind my back, her moving on without a second thought. And now she wanted to act like she'd done me a favor? She looked me in the eyes, and I could see how red and raw they were from crying. "Walter, there are things you don't know. things I couldn't tell you back then. I was being watched. I was threatened. I thought, if I stayed, you'd get dragged into something you couldn't survive. I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Threatened? Watched? It sounded like some ridiculous excuse, but there was something in her voice, this shaky, terrified tone, that made my skin crawl. I remembered how, near the end of our marriage, she'd started getting phone calls late at night and never explained who they were from. I remembered her locking her laptop the second I walked into a room, claiming it was just work. Before I could press her for details, one of her coworkers barged into the hallway, asking if she was okay. She wiped her face, nodded, and told them she just needed a moment. When they left, she looked at me and said, "I can't tell you here, but if you want to know everything, meet me tomorrow at the old train station, 9 p.m. No questions, just come." I don't know why, but I said yes. Maybe it was the look in her eyes, a mix of fear and guilt that I'd never seen before. Or maybe I just needed answers after years of drowning in silence. As I walked out of that hotel, past all the people still whispering about the crying woman in the green dress, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: dread. Because if she was telling the truth, then I hadn't just lost my wife 3 years ago, I'd stumbled into something far darker. Hi again, welcome back to Forsaken Joe. I didn't sleep at all that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario in my head. What could Nora have been mixed up in? Was this some twisted excuse to make me feel bad for her? Or had there been something real, something dangerous, lurking under the surface all along, something I had been too blind to see? The next evening, as the clock crept toward 9 p.m., my stomach felt like it was tied in knots. I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to stay home, lock the door, and leave the past buried where it belonged. But the other part, the part that had spent 3 years choking on unanswered questions, pushed me out the door. The old train station was practically abandoned, with nothing but the occasional whistle of the wind through the broken windows and the faint glow of a flickering streetlight. When I got there, Nora was already waiting. She wasn't dressed like the polished version of herself I'd seen at the party. She was in a plain hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, looking over her shoulder like every shadow might be watching her. She jumped when I walked up, which only added to the unease twisting inside me. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly, her voice hoarse, like she hadn't spoken since last night. "I didn't think you'd actually show up." "Believe me," I said, "I almost didn't." She hesitated for a long moment before finally blurting out something that made my blood run cold. "The reason I left? It wasn't because I didn't love you. It was because someone told me if I didn't disappear, they'd come after you." I froze, trying to process what I was hearing. "What the hell are you talking about? Who's they? Are you saying you were involved with someone dangerous?" She shook her head, pacing back and forth like she was unraveling. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I got mixed up with someone at work. At first it was just business. But then I found out he was laundering money through the company. I threatened to report it, and that's when the threats started. They knew about you, Walter. They knew where you worked, where you lived. I thought if I left you, if I pretended you didn't matter, they'd stop watching you." I wanted to laugh because it sounded insane, like some B-grade thriller plot, but the look on her face was dead serious. And then I remembered something that had been nagging me for years. The time I came home from work to find the front door unlocked, the living room drawers rifled through. She'd brushed it off as nothing. At the time, I believed her, but now it made my skin crawl. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice low. "Because I can't keep living like this," she said, tears welling in her eyes again. "I think something's happening again. They've been calling me. I think they're watching me, and I don't know what they want this time. I just know you need to stay away from me, Walter, or you're going to get dragged into this too." For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I just stood there, the sound of the wind whistling through the station, filling the silence between us. I hated her for leaving me. I hated the years of confusion and pain. But now I didn't know if I hated her or if I was terrified for her. And then, as if on cue, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of a car door slamming somewhere in the dark. Nora's head whipped around, her eyes wide with panic. "We need to go," she whispered. "Now." "Hi again, welcome back to Forsaken Joe." When I heard that car door slam, it was like every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. The station was surrounded by overgrown weeds and cracked pavement, with only one functioning streetlight throwing a pale circle of light across the lot. Beyond that circle was nothing but darkness. Nora grabbed my sleeve so tightly that her nails dug into my skin. "Walter, I'm serious. We have to leave. Now," she hissed, her voice trembling. I caught sight of a dark sedan parked just beyond the light. Its windows were tinted, and I couldn't see anyone inside, but I felt it, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Then, as if to confirm our worst fears, the car's engine rumbled to life. It wasn't just sitting there. Someone was waiting. "Is this a joke?" I whispered, my heart hammering. "Are you trying to scare me? Because if this is some twisted game." "Does that look like a game to you?" she snapped, pointing as the car's headlights suddenly flicked on, two piercing beams cutting through the dark. The light landed on us, blinding me for a second. "Run!" she yelled, and before I could even think, we were sprinting toward my car, parked near the side entrance of the station. I've never been much of a runner, but in that moment, I swear I broke every personal record I'd ever had. My chest was burning, my legs were on fire, but the sound of tires crunching over gravel behind us pushed me forward. We slammed into my car, and I barely had time to start the engine before the dark sedan pulled out from its spot. "Drive!" Nora shouted, her voice shrill with panic. "Don't go home. Just drive anywhere but home." So I did. I floored it, tearing out of that empty lot like my life depended on it. The sedan followed, its headlights glued to my rearview mirror. I tried every turn I could think of, weaving through side streets, but the car stayed with us. That's when I realized this wasn't random. Whoever was in that car wanted her, and by being with her, I was now part of whatever nightmare she'd been living. "Who are they?" I yelled over the roar of the engine. "Who the hell is in that car, Nora?" She covered her face with her hands, shaking her head. "I don't know his real name. He just called himself Kellen. He was part of the money laundering operation I told you about. I think he thinks I still have something, some files or evidence that could get him arrested. Walter, I never wanted this for you. I should have just stayed away forever." But before she could finish, the sedan accelerated and swerved dangerously close to us, like it was trying to force me off the road. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, my heart pounding so loud I couldn't even hear her words anymore. I took a sharp right down a street I barely recognized, praying I could lose them. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I saw the sedan's headlights fade in the distance. I pulled into an old gas station lot and killed the engine. Both of us sat there in the dark, breathing like we'd just escaped death. Nora stared out the window, her face pale and hollow. "Walter," she said softly, "this isn't over. If they know you've seen me, they won't just let you walk away. We need to figure out what they want before it's too late." I wanted to tell her to get out of my car, to leave me alone and take her mess with her. But some part of me, maybe the pathetic part that still loved her, couldn't do it. Because deep down, I knew she was right. Whatever this was, I was in it now. Hi again, welcome back to Forsaken Joe. We sat in that silent car for what felt like hours, both of us catching our breath, the adrenaline slowly draining out and leaving behind a heavy, suffocating quiet. I remember staring at Nora's reflection in the windshield, thinking she looked like a stranger. Her face was thinner, sharper than I remembered, and her eyes weren't the same warm brown that used to pull me in. They were wild, frantic, constantly flicking to every shadow, like something was about to jump out. This was not the woman I married, not the woman who used to fall asleep with her head on my chest while we watched bad sitcoms. And yet, here I was, risking everything for her again, just like I always did. "Tell me everything," I said finally, my voice harsher than I intended. "All of it. No more half-truths, no more disappearing acts. Who the hell are these people, and what have you done?" She hesitated, her hands shaking as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I told you, Walter. I found out things I wasn't supposed to, but it's worse than I thought. It's not just one guy. It's a network. They've got connections everywhere, inside the company, outside. They pay people off, threaten them, make them vanish if they talk. I think they killed someone I used to work with, and I have proof. I stole files from their servers. I copied emails, transactions. If they know I still have it, they'll come for me. And now, they'll come for you too." My stomach dropped. I wanted to scream at her for dragging me into this, but some part of me couldn't help wondering if she'd been living like this all along, hiding secrets behind that perfect smile while I just stumbled through life, thinking our marriage ended, because I wasn't enough. "You should have come to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. 3 years ago, you should have told me. We could have gone to the cops, gone to the FBI, anything but this." She laughed bitterly, a sound that made my skin crawl. You think I didn't try? I did. I went to the police once. A day later, someone broke into my apartment and left a photo of you on my pillow. Do you understand? They knew everything about you. Your job, your family, even where your mom lives. That's when I left. It was the only way to keep you safe. I thought if I disappeared, they'd move on. But they didn't. I didn't know what to say. Every instinct told me to get out, to run from her, and this nightmare she was dragging behind her. But the thought of leaving her alone with this, whatever this was, felt wrong. Maybe I was still that pathetic guy who couldn't let go, but I also couldn't stand the idea of her facing these people by herself. Where's the proof? I asked finally. The files, the emails, where is it now? She hesitated again, and that pause told me everything. It's hidden, she said carefully. Somewhere they can't reach it. But I can't tell you where, not yet. If I do, you'll become a target too. I've already put you in enough danger. I was about to argue when my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number popped up on the screen. Stay away from her. This is your only warning. I showed it to Nora, and her face went pale. She didn't say anything, but the look in her eyes told me she knew exactly who it was from. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. These people weren't just watching her anymore. They were watching me. Hi again. Welcome back to Forsaken Joe. I drove Nora to a small, out-of-the-way motel that night. It was the kind of place where the neon sign flickers like it's on life support, and the air smells like mildew and broken dreams. She didn't want to go back to her apartment, and honestly, I didn't blame her. Whoever sent that text message knew about me now, and that meant they probably knew where she lived too. We sat in the car for a long time before she finally looked at me with those exhausted, hollow eyes and whispered, "You should just go home, Walter. Forget all of this. Forget me." And maybe I should have. Maybe I should have walked away, let her deal with whatever mess she had created. But I couldn't. I've spent 3 years trying to hate her, trying to erase her from my life. But seeing her like this, terrified, broken, it pulled me back in. I can't just forget you, I told her. Not after what you just told me. If they're after you, I can't let you face this alone. She didn't respond. She just nodded, like she was too tired to argue, and disappeared into her motel room while I sat in my car trying to figure out what the hell I had just signed myself up for. The next morning, I woke up to a feeling I couldn't shake, the kind of gut-level paranoia that makes you double-check every lock and glance over your shoulder at every shadow. I don't know if it was the lack of sleep or just instinct, but I noticed a black SUV parked 2 houses down from my apartment building. It was there when I left for work, and it was still there when I came home that night. No one got in or out. I tried telling myself I was being paranoid, but then, as I took out the trash, I saw the faint glow of someone's phone screen in the front seat. Someone was sitting there, watching. I pretended not to notice, but my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I went back inside and texted Nora. "Are you being followed?" She didn't answer. For the next 2 hours, I paced around my apartment like a trapped animal, every noise making me jump. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove to the motel to check on her. When I knocked on her door, she opened it just a crack, her face pale. "Walter, you shouldn't be here," she whispered. "They're watching you now. You need to go before you get dragged into this." "They're already watching me," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "I saw them. Whoever they are, they know where I live. I need to know what we're dealing with, Nora. No more secrets. You said you have proof? Then let's use it. Let's go to the FBI or something before this gets worse." She shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's not that simple. These people, they have someone on the inside. I don't know who, but I know the first time I tried to go to the feds, the threats got worse. I don't even know if I can trust the cops. Walter, these aren't just shady businessmen. They've hurt people before. I think they killed my friend Elise when she tried to expose them." The name Elise made me pause. I remembered her, Nora's co-worker, who moved to another country right around the time Nora left me. Back then, I didn't think much of it. Now, I wasn't so sure. Before I could respond, we both froze at the sound of tires screeching outside. I pulled back the curtain just enough to see the same black SUV from my street parked across the road. This time, 2 men in dark jackets were stepping out, scanning the parking lot like they were looking for someone. Nora grabbed my arm so hard I felt her nails dig into my skin. "They found me," she whispered. "Hi again. Welcome back to Forsaken Joe." When I saw those 2 men step out of the SUV, Every instinct told me to run. My pulse was pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. Nora grabbed my arm, whispering, "We have to leave." Through the back door. "Now!" We slipped out of the motel room and crept down the hallway, but just as we reached the back exit, one of the men spotted us. "Nora, stop right there!" he shouted. My whole body froze. For a split second, I thought it was over. But Nora didn't stop. She yanked me by the hand and pulled me into the alley behind the motel. We sprinted through the shadows, our footsteps pounding against the cracked pavement. I could hear them chasing us. We ducked behind a dumpster, both of us gasping for air, while I tried to think of something, anything, that could get us out of this alive. That's when I remembered the old payphone at the gas station across the street. I hadn't used one in years, but something told me it was safer than using my own phone. We waited until the SUV circled the front of the motel, then we ran. I called the one person I could trust, my cousin Eric, who works in cybersecurity for a private company. I told him everything, every terrifying detail. Within minutes, he sent a location pin and said, "Bring me everything Nora has. I'll make sure this ends tonight." We met Eric in an underground parking garage where he had already set up a laptop and some equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Nora handed him a flash drive she'd been carrying on a chain around her neck this whole time. "This has everything. Bank transfers, emails, blackmail files," she said. "It's enough to take them down if we can get it to the right people." Eric nodded and got to work, hacking into multiple secure servers. For the next few hours, we sat there in silence, waiting, watching Eric work like his fingers were on fire. Finally, just before dawn, he leaned back and smiled for the first time. "They're done," he said. "I sent everything to an FBI contact I trust. They can't bury this now. By tomorrow, their accounts will be frozen, and they'll have nowhere to hide." When those words sank in, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. 3 years of confusion, anger, and pain just melting away. Nora looked at me with tears in her eyes, not from fear this time, but from relief. "I'm sorry, Walter," she whispered, "for everything. I thought I was protecting you, but I hurt you the most. Can you ever forgive me?" I don't know if I'll ever forget the pain she caused, but in that moment, I realized I still loved her. "You're here now," I said. "That's all that matters." The next day, the news broke. Federal raids, arrests, the whole thing splashed across headlines. The men who had been chasing her were in custody. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Nora and I sat on my old couch, watching the news with coffee in our hands, and for the first time, there was no tension, no unspoken words, just quiet, steady peace. So, that's how this insane chapter of my life ends. Not with bitterness, but with hope. Nora and I have a long way to go, but for once the future doesn't feel like a dark tunnel. It feels like maybe, just maybe, we have a second chance. What do you think, guys? Would you have trusted Nora after everything she did? And if you were in my shoes, would you have stayed to help or walked away for good? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget, you're on Forsaken Joe, where real stories get real messy. If you enjoyed this wild ride, drop a like and share your own story down below.